so much culturally, religiously, to an average northerner means so much to them than others who are from the other part of Nigeria. And that is why you get to see a lot of southerners who somehow, because of this religious connection, also have their own sentiment, which is tilted towards, the caliphate, and obviously against whatever America is doing. So that gives them a bit of a balance to make it look like, oh, a sizable part of Nigeria would not possibly support this. That's the impression. However, why Sokoto? About 2 years ago, it was announced that prior to that, like for several years before then, there's been a terror group called Lakurawa. And Lakurawa is said to be more even deadlier than the ISWAP and Boko Haram combined. How? So Sokoto was their breeding ground because of the fact that the northwest state of Sokoto shared borders with these Sahel countries, right? Including Niger and others. So it was pretty much like walking from one border to the other, to the next one, to the next. So all these neighboring villages, they've had these Lakurawas, infiltrated them so much that they have almost like accepted them as part of them for protection as well, of course. So when they go out and strike anywhere, they come back to all these places. And it's very much strong that they have scholars, Lakurawa terrorists who are scholars, Islamic scholars in these communities. True story. So when Donald Trump said he was coming for the ISIS, he called them ISIS because ISWAP is the West African faction of the ISIS of Iraq and Afghanistan, all these places, right? Syria. So ISWAP is Islamic State of West African Province, ISWAP. So they are the affiliates of the ISIL or ISIS, and to Trump, the ISIS. So communities like, there's about 2 local government areas where these strikes hit yesterday. How many are there? We don't know how many strikes. How many of these terrorists then were actually really destroyed? We do not know yet. But for the people in the community in these 2 local government areas of Tangaza and Tambuwa, these communities like adjoined, one another like that, spread to 2 local government areas. Days where the areas hit. Aftermath this morning, where the residents came out and they were like, there were no casualties. However, they are worried because they started seeing these flying objects that started landing in some of these communities, open fields and all of that, that they created a serious panic within the communities, right? But there was no casualty. So now the agenda is that the agenda is that the fired rockets to get rid of the terrorists in Nigeria were just, fired as, into open fields, that no terrorist is struck, and we don't know that yet. But this is the morning after.
Glory be to God, there was no loss of life and no loss of property. This thing happened around 10:45.
Allah, there is no any loss of life, no any loss of property. You can see by your naked eyes, so you can see there is no any loss of life. It will just fire.
They are not bomb experts, but the local police decided to cordon off the areas where the rocket landed, the bomb landed in their own areas, right? But they can also see from far away smokes in the forest. Do you get me now? Like, these are now not communities. They're like inside the forest, suspected to be some of the targeted terrorist den. So right now we don't have the full details, but from the early or preliminary kind of information coming out was that the area where these terrorists actually domiciled seemed to be the, I think they said it's the northeast of the country, not the northwest. So it's like bombing this space or bombs dropping here when it should be dropping here. So if their coordinates are right, by any chance, okay, so that simply means none of these rockets should be dropping here. They should be dropping there. That's where you get to see Bello Turuji. They said Bello Turuji lives in the northeast of the upper part of the country. Of the state. The place where he's been carrying out his different sort of attacks in different states, northwest states in Nigeria. But like I said, we do not actually have the full grasp of who is dead, which of the terror group has now been wiped out. Maybe it is too early for that, maybe not. However, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, when he was asked in that interview, right, that is this it or there will be more?
Honorable Minister, some people would want to find out, is this an ongoing operation? Are we going to be seeing more strikes like this one?
Well, I believe, like I said, it's an ongoing thing. And we're working with the U.S., we're working with other countries as well. So for all those that are prepared to work with us to combat terrorism, to ensure security in our region, in Nigeria itself, we're ready to cooperate. We're ready to collaborate. So this is something, that has remained the same. Put it this way, you can call it a new phase of an old conflict. For us, it's something that's been ongoing. So we focus on that.
There was something you mentioned.
Do you see how Rob is Shane there? That's the only thing I want to believe, that he's actually saying the truth. Because that's the one when he said, okay, like Rob's his beard is chained like that, and he said, consider this as the new phase of the old fight, old war. So meaning, somehow, America is now free to do what they think should be done in ending this madness, if this is it. And to those who felt like what they saw is actually bomb in these communities, people are now saying you are actually receiving the shrapnel or the part of the bomb. The bomb itself has exploded probably like kilometers away. What you are seeing there in your communities is just the flying part or something. Do you get what I mean? Like if the bomb landed in those communities, none of those people will be alive to even go and say they are witnesses. Trust me. Okay. Yeah, trust me. We are talking about a bomb, that flying bomb, right? It said it can weigh as much as 400 pounds. Sorry, 400 kg. That's like how much? 200 what pounds? That's heavy. It's like piling 5 or 6 bags. 8 bags of cement, 50 kg cement, 8, and then you make it a flying object that works. You know what I mean? So that's not the bomb. What they found in Tambuwa local government area, so those communities are not the flying rockets. You get what I mean now? But what they found in Offa, in Kwara, last night, has given people a bit of a concern too. You know what I mean? Like, nobody has been able to describe what this is, but this was found in Offa last night, Kwara State. Don't know what that is. Maybe it's yet to explode explosive, but the explosive, right, didn't land on this property though. It was just like outside it. It's the vibration and all that caused this wreckage, this demolition on your screen. That's enough. So we don't have details of that, but people automatically suspected that it could be one of those flying objects sent to the northwest. But that's not the central. You know what I mean? So, but there are people who believes that not only that the sovereignty of Nigeria has been completely surrendered in this manner, right? It's a shame to what Nigeria has now become. So to say, here is one person before we go to Sheikh Osama bin Gumi, who said, if Nigeria must survive, Tinubu must sever all military relationship with America now, or else, if America continues, this may break up Nigeria. We'll get to that part.
Okay, this is a very, very serious development, obviously, of American bombs falling over Nigerian territory. It will be discussed not only in Nigeria, but all over Africa. People will be discussing the implications. Every peace-loving Nigerian, and that is most of us, would like to see the terrorists and the bandits and the insurgents and all the other criminals wiped out. And since around 2009, with the beginning of the Boko Haram crisis, we had been appealing to the Western powers and the other international powers for help in order to defeat this problem. And they had been resisting, giving all kinds of reasons about human rights and all that. But in the last 2 months or so, President Donald Trump in particular had been threatening to carry out these attacks, which he has finally done. And there are several issues around that, beginning with the sovereignty issue. But of course, the Nigerian government has said that it cooperated. Okay, so at least that partially addresses the issue of sovereignty. But then there are other issues, like the choice of targets was also curious, because if you say the attack was directed at ISIS, one would have thought that the part where the bombs dropped, southeastern Sokoto State, is the relatively safe part of Sokoto State, and that in Sokoto State too, it is the northeastern part adjoining Zamfara State where the bandits and terrorists are most active, right into Zamfara State and the western part of Kebbi State. And also, it is in the northeast specifically that we have the ISWAP, which is openly paying allegiance to ISIS, as well as the Boko Haram. Boko Haram does not pay allegiance to ISIS, but they have the same modus operandi, and they are the worst of the terrorist groups that we have, because if you remember, only 2 days ago on Wednesday evening, Boko Haram exploded a bomb in a crowded mosque after prayers in Maiduguri, and they killed several people and injured dozens of others. So one would have thought that if the Nigerian government assisted in the choice of targets, they should have directed it towards the deadliest of the terrorist groups, which is around the Sambisa Forest and the Mandara Mountains adjoining Cameroon and Chad, and also the Lake Chad small islets in the Lake Chad basin, which is exactly where ISWAP is located. But of course, the bandits and the terrorists in the northwest are also very deadly, and they also ransack villages, abduct people, kill, and everything. So they are also legitimate targets, probably, although they shouldn't be the most important targets. Then there are other questions. For example, you know, President Donald Trump, his messaging complicates matters. The Trump administration is not exactly famous for helping communities. It even creates problems where problems do not exist. Like in South Africa, you say that there is genocide against white South Africans and you want to save them. That kind of messaging creates problems even where it does not exist. Okay, while the U.S. Defense Department is saying that this attack is targeted at ISIS, President Trump himself posted on social media that he is protecting Christians in Nigeria, a view that the Nigerian government has tried very strenuously to debunk, so that he does not create or rather compound our religious problems here in Nigeria.
Nuisance Lele. Nuisance Lele.
No, why don't you leave the terrorists in Sokoto for now? Okay, let's go and deal with the terrorists in Borno, and then those ones of Borno will be like, no, you know what? We cannot be dealing with the terrorists in Borno now. Let's go and deal with the terrorists instead of that. Why don't you just go and deal with the terrorists in Niger? Say, okay, let's go to Niger. No, why Niger now? I mean, the terrorists here, they are not as deadly as the terrorists in Plateau or Benue. Are you sure? Okay, let's go to Benue. You say, why are you coming to Benue? Borno is boiling. They just bombed a mosque there. He said, but they told us that Borno is not as deadly as... no, Borno is deadlier. We don't want this whole thing. This is what these narratives kind of like sounded like, okay? But he's not wrong that Nigeria could have possibly saved themselves. Nigeria could have been saved from this shame, because the rest of Africa, the rest of the world, we no longer look at Nigeria the same way anymore. And this is to the credit of APC, Egbekegbe, in that Nigeria. Although they said that you cannot really shame the shameless, but sometimes, maybe when you keep reminding the shameless of the shame that is in shamelessness, maybe somehow, maybe they'll begin to see it too. You know what I mean? Nigeria's sovereignty. There's no sovereignty anymore. That's a mirage now. You know, Nigeria will not fly jet from Nigeria and go to America and drop a bomb. It's never going to happen. Under no circumstance that will ever happen. I'm not comparing Nigeria to America, but at least if Nigeria was a real country, Nigeria was supposed to be the America of Africa, the big brother of Africa, the role model in everything, leadership, governance, citizenship rights, protection, security, all those things, things that makes the rest of others want to be like you, jealous of you, envious of you. But no, if you don't know this, now you should know that majority of these Africans are just looking at Nigeria with a sad face, like, wow. And yeah, they treat us same, simply because of these rogues who have all it takes to stop this murderous terrorist. But they will choose what language should be used, how they should placate them. Baba, they opened ministry for terrorists in Nigeria, Ministry of Livestock, Nigeria Minister of Agriculture. She livestock is not under agriculture. To placate terrorists in order to take people's lands, to appease them, rather than give them lead, they were offering them gold. You get what I mean? Land for them, budget for them, a minister for them, but yet the killings never really stopped. They have all it takes, except the political will, to really go after the terrorists. And that is why somebody like Sheikh Osama bin Gumi, the spokesperson for all these armed terrorists in Nigeria, quickly issued his own statement. And his statement is that this action of Donald Trump is going to create even more problems. Okay? He said Nigeria should stop military cooperation with US immediately. Initially, he once asked Tinubu to recall the American ambassador to Nigeria and send them to close their embassy from Nigeria. Baba, this guy went to Turkey. Remember that time he went